Hello again and welcome back. If you are watching us from our last video, which I hope you are because you're with us, you're our people, right? If not, that's okay. You can be our people. It's all right with us. But I'm back. I am Kanisha and this is
Sylvia.
And we are back to do another Sunday school lesson. Last week we had Sylvia covering from generation to generation, and this week we are still talking about those Proverbs. And this time we are on lesson 3, September 19th, and the title of the lesson is Teaching Value.
Yes, so this week's lesson comes from Proverbs, the 15th chapter, starting at the 21st verse and going through the 33rd. And our Bible truth is godly wisdom is necessary to live well and to succeed. Our memory verse, he that refuseth instruction despiseth his own soul, but he that heareth reproof getteth understanding. And that's Proverbs 15:32, and that's the King James Version. If you've read through the book of Proverbs, you observe that it seems to go like from thought to thought to thought to thought. But really, if you consider how wise Solomon was, and there is a method to the madness, okay? So another point in Proverbs, if you're reading from the King James Version, there is a lot of words, or are a lot of words. I think that's the right way to say it. There are a lot of words that we don't use in our general language today.
Yes. Well, is that just Proverbs? I think that's the Bible.
Yes, it is
King
the
James.
Bible. It is the Bible as a whole. So don't feel like you can't go get a dictionary or use another translation if you're going to use the English Standard Version or an NIV or something like that. Because sometimes you come across a word we don't use. And so in that very first verse in the lesson, it says, folly is a joy to him that is destitute of wisdom. The word folly, foolishness, being silly, being stupid, being without purpose. And it says it's a joy. So you enjoy it. If you are destitute, which is another word that you don't necessarily use all the time, but it's probably more common. If you don't have any wisdom, then foolishness is great to you.
Yeah.
Counter to that, it says, but a man of understanding walketh uprightly. And so a person who has knowledge,
All right.
who has wisdom, who can see things and learn things, who will ask questions.
Ask a question.
Their approach is different. And so when it says walk uprightly, they are seen as someone of having respect and stature. Foolish people, you kind of like.
It made me think of two sayings that we hear people say pretty, often. I think so. Ignorance is bliss.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also hear that when you know better, you do better.
Yes.
And that's kind of like, if this is Kanisha translation. So we got Kanisha verse 1. No, Kanisha chapter 1 verse 1.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then this is Kanisha translation. Okay. Ignorance is bliss. You just blissfully going about in your ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
But when you know better,
You do better. And people see you better.
And they will see you better.
So look at some of the other things. It talks about people who don't take counsel. People don't ask some questions.
Look.
Take the advice of other people, wise people, people who are knowledgeable in things. If you try to apply it this way, if I seek counsel, and I've done this, and maybe you have.
We've done it.
I'm not even gonna go
have done
it. You get that circle of people that are always co-signing on your bad ideas.
If we be honest, sometimes we be the folly because we go to the person who gonna tell us what we want to hear.
What we want to hear. That is not godly wisdom, and so you can't say, "Well, I take counsel." No, you take garbage. That's not what he's talking about. We need to make sure that we are seeking godly wisdom. The way of life is above to the wise, that he may depart from hell beneath. So again, that wisdom, if you apply that counsel, if you go to those who are knowledgeable, if you seek God in His Word and through prayer, you will avoid the depths of hell. So in the next part, section 2 of the lesson, I have on my heading, wicked behavior struggles. And he says, the Lord will destroy the house of the proud, but He will establish the border of the widow. And yes, that is true in its literal sense, but it's also true in a figurative sense, right? Mm-hmm. And so what do you mean by proud people? Arrogant. Those very ambitious people who will tread on others, who will use others, exploit people. Those of us who are only in pursuit of our own wants and needs. But then it talks about what He will do for the widow. And it's not just the widow. It's those who are meek, those who are low, those who are humble, those who are in need, those who are looked at in the population or society as being less than, right? So a woman who did not have a husband had a lower status in society. Things like that, God looks at those people and it says He will establish the border. He will protect those people. And so if you're proud and you're pursuing you and self,
I got this.
Yeah, but God is taking care of them. Who's in a better position?
Right. When I was looking at it, I thought just like what you were saying, but the widow is the one who's in need. Mm-hmm. Widows have a lack of in the definite, literal term, she's lacking her husband, which was her protection, provider. He held the things together. He was her covering. Mm-hmm. But when that leaves, you're left uncovered. So the protection that you have, your forces, your fence around you, that protection has come down.
Right.
But what he's saying, where that protection has dropped, I'm going to protect that border. Mm-hmm. Whatever it is where we are lacking, God comes to cover and fill.
He talks about the comparison next verse about greedy. And we glorify possessions. I want some shoes. I want some purses. I want new car. I want to travel.
All the money.
Yeah, that's not good. It's a trouble, and it says troubleth. So not just that it's not good, but it brings problems to your home.
Yeah.
Or your living situation.
But you know what else? When you get to a place of greed where you just can't be satisfied, you're always doing, you're always going, you're always being taxed to feel the greed. But the thing about, really, we just bring it there, the thing about the flesh is it's never satisfied.
Nope.
You will always have a need in the flesh. Back like we said, it's not the material things, but it's just the greed that keeps you on the run. Trying to satisfy the flesh that will not be satisfied.
And I mentioned it.
Home. Sorry.
It will. I mentioned it earlier when I was talking about fruits of the spirit, and when you were talking, I was like temperance. You lack that self-control, and that greed consumes you.
Yeah.
I gotta have it, and bringing it to modern times, right? Credit card debt,
Out the wazoo.
bankruptcies, foreclosures, so much stuff going on because of greed. Mm-hmm. And what this proverb says is it's going to bring problems to your place. You think that you're pursuing something good, but since you can't control that greed, it's going to bring problems to you. You're not going to bring great things to you. You're going to bring bad stuff. Right. And then it gives you again the reverse for the person who hates gifts. And it doesn't mean that you don't like receiving things, but you don't worship that. Mm-mm. You don't make that the center of your life. Their result is different. So for the person who has some self-control, who doesn't have to, spend all their money and do stuff like that, their result is different.
Well, you know what it makes me think about? So when I was in school, There was this girl, she was a friend of mine. I won't say she was a friend or not. But there was a homework, we had a math homework assignment, and she asked me to help her. And I was like, sure. But I just gave her my homework so that she could copy it.
Evil things.
And, you know, she copied it. And, you know, my answers was right. I knew what I was doing. I shared what I knew with her, but I didn't show her how to get that. So when it comes time for the test,
She still didn't know.
she still didn't know. She didn't know. So did she pass the test? No. I shared with her my answers that I had obtained, my math wisdom. I shared my answers with her, but didn't show her how to get that. So because I did not share her, in essence, it was evil pouring. Even though I didn't necessarily, I wasn't trying.
You weren't trying to set her up for failure.
Set her up for failure, but
you did.
unknowingly I was. And I think people do that often because...
Well, and it supports what it says about studying to answer. So the righteous person considers or thinks on, uses wisdom in how they respond to situations. Mm-hmm. And so, as a mature adult now, someone asks you for some help, like, sit down, let me explain it to you. Whereas,
stop that. You got grown folks who will be like her.
I said mature. I said I had to stop.
Wise adult.
I said mature. Not old people, but mature in thought. But as a mature thinker,
right,
your response to things is different. The Lord is far from the wicked. If that in and of itself isn't enough, where'd he go? If you, he's far. You don't want to be separated from God. You want God and his protection and his love to be near to you. You want to, and it doesn't mean like physically far, but you are separated from him.
Well, that's what sin does. Mm-hmm. Sin is the separation. Sin is what doesn't draw, but it drives God away from us, the uncleanliness of us. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just like having a stinky person. You're like, pew, I won't sit next to her.
Right.
She stinks.
Since you brought it up, we skipped it, but we're going to go back. And I'm just going to edit it and put it in the right place. So she was talking about that stinky person. The word abomination is used in 26. And it says the thoughts of the wicked are an abomination. So that stinky person, their thoughts are disgusting. They're repulsive to God. And again, when you think about it as far as being far from someone, you don't want to be close to something that repulses you.
No.
You don't want to sit next to something that is disgusting to you, is a stench to you. What do? We scoot over. Mm-hmm. We move away. We separate ourselves.
Find an excuse to go somewhere else.
We get rid of it. So the proverb is telling us that God will set it away. I don't want that. That's nasty to me. That's gross to me. And we don't want our thoughts and our actions to be repelling to God. So we want to apply his wisdom so that we can continue to be near to him.
I'd also just like to point out that, you know, it's saying that the thoughts are abomination. I think a lot of times when we say or we hear the word abomination, there's one giant elephant that is always in the room. But this is more than just sexual immorality. Mm-hmm. This is a thought process.
Yes.
Your thought process, if you're wicked, is abominable to God. And it has to be because your thoughts are not right. But that refers back to the scripture that I had mentioned earlier in Proverbs 12. The thoughts of the righteous are right. And that's even a check to ourselves. How are you thinking?
Yes.
If your thinking isn't right, you know, check yourself. I don't want my thoughts to be abominable to God.
The person that hears correction in life, that is a wise person. They can be counted as being a wise person. They will surround themselves with wise people. We want to be wise. We don't want to be the folly person. go back to that proud person, right? That proud person, you can't tell them nothing. And they ain't trying to hear you. They're going to do what they're going to do, and they're going to get what they get. We want to be someone who is, what's the word, not stiff-necked. My mama used to say a hard head makes a soft mind.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you want to live with among the wise, don't be one of them hard-headed folks. Learn to listen when you're being corrected, because it's for your growth and your development.
Be prepared for the answer
Not to be what
that
you
you
want.
get. You know, it may be what you want. It may not be, but be ready to receive that which is given unto you. You know, I can't say I don't like it because it's not what I wanted. No, I take what's good for me.
Think about it, to have regard for God. If I am concerned for how he sees me and what I do, that's the beginning of wisdom right there, because I'm going to think about it first.
Yeah.
If I'm going to do something and I'm like, well, wait a minute, what is God going to think when he sees this? I did that a few times, actually.
It's a good thing to do.
I did that.
Acknowledge the Lord in all thy ways,
Mhm.
and he shall direct my path. Direct me, Lord.
And he did direct. But what they're telling you to do is to have regard and respect and reverence for his sovereign rule in your life, his holiness, his righteousness. So when I'm making decisions, I'm thinking and regarding his eyes being on that. And is it, again, the building blocks, is it repelling to him? Is it an abomination? Does this stink to him? Is it disgusting? Is he pleased with this?
Is he moving away from me?
Is he moving away, or is he getting closer? What the lesson is teaching us is, if you are not living according to God's plan, you're going to have some problems. And they will be problems that are brought on by you. If we build on each of these, and remember to go back and consider how this proverb is relevant to some of the other ones that we studied, I think it will help us and you get a more total picture of this godly wisdom that we are trying to achieve.
In this lesson, with all this talk of wisdom and doing this and not being wicked but being righteous and fearing the Lord and all of that, in our daily life, what does it look like to abide in wisdom? What does that look like in my life? How do I personalize this? That's the question.